PCB defects will cause serious adverse consequences. So, how to quickly detect PCB board failure problems? The following common PCB problems are listed for reference to control PCB quality. Base copper. The white dots have no glass fibers exposed and are not connected to each other. If the white dot diffusion level 100 ccm2 does not exceed 50 points can be accepted. If the white dot diffusion average 100 ccm2 does not exceed 50 points can be accepted. Pith. Rough, with loose nonmetal burrs, but not yet broken edge can be accepted, shall not affect the external size and installation function. Layering foaming. The area affected by layering foaming has not yet exceeded 1% of each panel surface. Stratified/bubbling regions whose spans do not exceed 25% of the conductor spacing are stratified bubbling. After 3 thermal shock tests, there is no gap on the edge of the plate. The delamination/foaming distance to the edge of the plate shall not be less than the distance between the edge of the plate and the nearest conductor, or less than 2.5 mm if not specified. Edge notch. The edge of the board is rough, but not broken. There is a gap at the edge of the plate, but it has not exceeded the distance between the edge of the plate and the nearest conductor, or the distance from the nearest conductor is 2.5 mm, the smaller value of the two. Pits/pits. Concave points/pits S 0.8 mm, the total affected plate area S 5% per side is acceptable. The dips/pits have not yet bridged the conductors. The particles sandwiched in the plate are acceptable if they are translucent and non-conducting. Other opaque non-conducting particles can be received if the following conditions are met. The distance between the foreign inclusion particles and the nearest conductor is greater than or equal to 0.125 mm. The particles in the substrate pits/pits between adjacent conductors did not reduce their spacing by less than 30%. The length of foreign matter removed from any direction shall not exceed 0.8 mm. The particles do not affect the electrical properties of the plate. Line scratch. IPC Cast 2. 1. The defects caused by indentation and scratch before green oil shall not exceed 30% of the standard line thickness. 2. Length less than or equal to 30 mm, each set less than or equal to 3 points. 3. Do not cross 3 lines. IPC Cast 3. 1. The defects caused by indentation and scratch before green oil shall not exceed 20% of the standard line thickness. 2. Length less than or equal to 20 mm, each set less than or equal to 2 points. 3. Do not cross 3 lines. 1. A single defect or any combination of defects so that the reduction of the wire does not exceed 20% of the standard line width of the wire. 2. The total length of a single defect or any combination of defects is not greater than 10% of the length of the wire or more than 13 mm, the smaller value of both. Weld-proof hole. The via hole and part hole of the window opening are not acceptable. The NPTH hole. If the hole does not connect 2 or more layers of lines and does not affect the aperture, and does not exceed 5% of the entire hole wall area is acceptable, and there are less than or equal to 2 copper per set. Pore ring. IPC Class 2. 1. The through hole is allowed to break 90 degrees, but the remaining ring at the line connection is 20.05 mm, and the reduction of the pore line with the whole ring cannot exceed 20% of its lower limit width. 2. Parts holes, non-sunk copper holes, are not allowed to break. IPC Class 3. 1. Although the hole position of the pass-through hole is not centered on the disc position, the remaining ring at the narrowest point is 20.05 mm, and the line width is not reduced. The conduction hole is broken. 2. Parts holes, Non-sunk copper holes. Any azimuth measurement of the rest of the ring must be 20.15 mm, and the reduction of the line cannot exceed 20% of its lower limit width. Lack of adhesion. 1. No oil is allowed after wave soldering. 2. Before the test, there is no phenomenon of anti-welding floating away from the plate surface. 1. Foaming/layering S0.25 mm, and only allowed per board surface. 2. Anti-welding skip marks. 2. Reduce the isolation. Electrical spacing less than 25% is acceptable. Welding scratch proof. Welding scratch-resistant copper is not exposed at a distance of 30 cm, 45 degrees is not visible, and the length is less than 50 mm acceptable. Scratch-exposed bottom material, substrate, copper, tin, S0.254 mm can be accepted, and each side less than or equal to 3 points. It is not accepted. Accept original design or MI indicating green oil on PAD. Plug/cover holes. When the customer has the specified green oil plug/cover hole, the plug/cover hole rate must be 100%, especially in the BGA area, and the hole depth is 23/4. No tin beads are allowed in the face of the component after tinning, welding surface and LT, 10. There should be no tin beads on both sides of the double-sided SMD and BGA areas. Hassle. Non-wetting. A single solder joint accepts 5% non-wetting. Cursor point. Smooth, polished copper, broken, falling off. Cannot exceed the upper limit of tin lead thickness requirements, and must be smooth, no tin column. Defects such as notches, dents, pinholes, etc. occurring along the edge of the welding pad on each surface shall not exceed 20% of the length or width of the welding pad. As for such defects as falling in the pad, it cannot exceed 10% of the length or width, and the maximum is not more than 0.15 m. Silkscreen. 1. The lines of various numbers or letters are intermittent, but the characters are recognizable and acceptable. 2. The hollow area of the character is filled, but the character is still recognizable and not confused with other letters or numbers. 3. As long as the character is clear, the ink can be accumulated on the outside of the character line. 4. The outline of the component clock symbol can be partially shed, but the required clock is still clear and identifiable. 5. The character ink can be on the non-surface mounting pad, but shall not penetrate into the component mounting hole, or cause the minimum width of the whole ring to be reduced. 6. Character ink color, model, brand, in line with customer requirements. 7. Where the plating through holes or through holes of non-component installation can allow screen printing character ink into the holes, but the customer has special requirements except. 8. Screen printing character ink shall not be on the edge of the plate, gold finger, or test point. 9. Character etching imperfections. When the span of the surface-mounted welding pad is 21.25 mm, the character ink can be allowed on the welding pad S0.05 mm on one side, at pad span and LT. At 1.25 mm, the character ink can be allowed on one side of the pad and LT, 0.025 mm. Bad logo. The UL logo, customer mark, and P/N must be clear and legible, and do not appear indistinguishable, broken, or double characters or symbols. Miss/reverse print. It is not acceptable. Adhesive force. No oil drop is acceptable after wave soldering. Poor OSP. IPC Class 2. 1. Oxidation, copper exposure, glue stains, poor coverage are not allowed. 2. The number of OSP single-hole holes less than or equal to 3. 3. The number of OSP holes in each plate does not exceed 5%. 4. Annular OSP holes 1/4 hole circumference. IPC Class 3. 1. Oxidation, copper exposure, glue stains, and pore coverage are not allowed. 2. The number of OSP single-hole holes less than or equal to 3 OSP skin film holes. 3. The number of OSP holes in each plate does not exceed 5%. 4. Annular OSP holes 1/4 hole circumference. 5. The hole area less than or equal to 5% hole wall area. Molding. 1. Punching edge collapse, copper roll over pad height is not allowed. 2. V-cut, routing, punching damaged copper, lines, and characters are not allowed, unless there is a special designation. 3. The cutting of the finished plate causes the width of the plate edge to dig the vacancy inward if it does not exceed 50% of the PCB board thickness, and there is no spalling of the surface line pattern that can be accepted. The length is not limited. 4. The overall size, notch, strip hole, square hole, oval hole, is not allowed to exceed tolerance. 5. Plate surface, plate edge processing powder is not cleaned, not acceptable. 6. Plate edge white, defect is not allowed. 7. The printing stamp hole is not allowed to be divided improperly. 8. V-cut leakage cut is not allowed. Bow. Using surface-mounted boards, warp less than or equal to 0.75% aluminum alloy board, warp less than or equal to 0.4% other types of boards, warp less than or equal to 1.5%. Customers have special requirements, according to customer requirements. Finest PCB Assemble Ltd. is a subsidiary of Finest Group. It was established on April 2019, specializing in EMS processing, SMT quick-turn prototype and small batch production. Finest PCBA team with the ability to selecting materials, making samples and small batch production, and donging testing services. We always improve research and development efficiency, aiming at providing fast service to satisfy customers' different demands for PCB assembly. Welcome to send us your Gerber file for inquiry at inquiries@finestpba.com. Visit our website, finestpcb.com.